What's up, everyone? Just wanted to take a quick minute to share with you something that I've been thinking about and then talking about with people a lot lately, and that has to do with the English teaching situation in Taipei, Taiwan, and what I feel that I've noticed change about it since I was last here about 2 or 3 years ago. And that is that about 2 or 3 years ago, it was fair to say that the average hourly salary for teaching English at the private language schools was 600 Taiwan dollars, which works out to be about 20 US dollars. And in Taipei, it could be slightly higher, so it could maybe be 600, 650, or 700. And those numbers would be pretty common to see in opening posts for jobs and initial job offers from schools. I would say new teachers realistically should still be getting at least 600 an hour for the offers and possibly even a bit more. And I felt that in Taipei it was slightly higher than the rest of the island because the higher cost of living in Taipei. So anyway, that was what I noticed about 2, 3 years ago. And then in returning back to Taipei this year, I was a bit surprised, honestly, to find a lot of jobs with opening offers in the 500s, which is something that really I had never seen before, and I had only heard of as either something from a long time ago when the cost of living was, a fraction of what it is now in Taiwan, or from very notorious schools that had a reputation for really trying to pull one over on new and uninformed teachers, foreign teachers. But it was never something that I really saw in my previous time in Taiwan. And so I figured if anything, people would now be more informed, cost of living is higher, and so that shouldn't be as likely to happen. And so I was seeing opening job offers, again, both in postings and coming directly from the companies, and in the 500 range. And so now we're talking about job offers maybe about 17, 18 US dollars an hour. And another trend I noticed with that was meeting more and more non-native English speakers from, I guess, primarily Europe and Latin America and other countries where you might have people that look like a native English speaker for wherever that might mean, but there's a certain perception out here that, native English speakers, Americans, Brits, etc., have a certain, physical feature set, certain looks, certain types of English and personality aptitudes. And anyway, the private language schools now seem to be more frequently hiring these non-native English speakers to be doing a small set of hours. It's almost always under the table. There's a few scenarios where if the person is, if they're married to a Taiwanese person, if they've been here long enough legally and they have permanent residency status, or if they have a student work permit status, that they might be able to be doing that legally, but I would say the vast majority are not. And that's actually seems to be the mutually beneficial nature of that arrangement, is that the schools are saving money because they're not paying taxes, they're not paying any of the work permit application fees. They also have the freedom to kind of bring on the foreigners for a limited amount of hours or a high number of hours, or just cut them off or tell them there won't be classes for a while. There's not much oversight. And the foreigners then have many of the same benefits. They're not as, committed or tied to the jobs. They can kind of take it as long as they need to. So more of the backpacker style English teaching. And they are not obligated to sign any contracts. They're not obligated to pay any taxes. And so, that negotiated number is actually their take home. And it often works out that that number at, let's say, $5 to $5.50 an hour that they're making winds up being more than what a native English speaker, especially if they were getting the same rate or if they were getting just a little bit more, would wind up still having as a take-home after taxes. And so because of this, then my observation or my assumption is that this has been part of what's been pushing down the overall initial offers from schools, is as opposed to jobs that would be $650 to $700 a few years ago, where I wasn't aware of as many non-native English speakers teaching, and now there seems to be more of a prevalence of that, and so the schools feel comfortable starting with that lower offer, figuring that they'll either be able to attract one of these non-native English speakers, or they'll just attract someone that's desperate or willing or feels that it doesn't make a big difference between, let's say, $550 and $600. Maybe they'll still offer to pay under the table without any of the paperwork kind of thing. So, this arrangement seems to be, if you don't consider the legality of it, it seems to be beneficial for the schools. They're saving money. It seems to be beneficial for the non-native English speakers because, they're able to get the job for one that maybe wasn't even available to them before. They're obviously able to make a pretty good salary here. And if they do have, competent, proficient level of English teaching, then, they're qualified and they should have an opportunity for that. And so the party that arguably is not benefiting from this, is having a negative impact, would be the native English teaching community, which is seeing on one hand a reduction in the starting wages and also a reduction in the number of available jobs, right? Because now we have to compete with a much larger pool of teachers. But on the other hand, an observation that I've noticed, although with, I guess, more limited data set, is as far as the private teaching, which is already under the table, it's not taxed, but in the past, the average going rate seemed to be just a little bit higher than what you would, for privates, than what you would get for classroom hours of teaching at a school. So let's say maybe 700 would be a more reasonable average to tell people for doing a private session. And now I'm seeing a lot more privates that are in the range of 800, maybe 1,000, 1,200, maybe even 1,500 for high needs, high expectation situations from certified, well-qualified, experienced tutors. And so it seems like the whole market is pushing everyone to operate in a realm of illegality to get the financial benefits and also to better serve the students with the kind of options that maybe they want. So if you want to send your kids or yourself to a private language school that's a bit cheaper, or at least hasn't gotten more expensive over the last few years, then maybe there's going to be a larger percentage of non-native English speakers that are masquerading as native English teachers, which that would arguably be another area for another discussion. How informed are the students, the clients, about what they're getting? Are they being misled? Is there misrepresentation? Or is it clear what the arrangement is? But perhaps because the schools and the students are having a larger percentage of these non-native English teachers, also unqualified professionals, probably without a whole lot of teaching experience. These are maybe university students, maybe kind of short-term traveler types. Then that might be pushing a larger percentage of the student population to look for tutoring and native English-speaking experience, and so that might be what's pushing them, the privates, up to a higher rate. But then it's kind of requiring everyone to operate illegally to be able to kind of get the most, to maximize the market opportunities. So anyway, that's a little bit of a discussion and analysis on my observations and experiences in what the English teaching market is doing and offering, as far as both the pay rate from the past few years to now, and also the demographic of who is teaching, and then the amount of kind of illegal versus legal teaching that's happening in Taiwan. So just some observations, some insight. Maybe you could let me know if this is something that matches up with your experiences, if you think that this is a new trend or this has been going on for a long time, and if you're considering about coming out to Taiwan, whether you're a native English speaker or non-native English speaker, whether it would be short-term, long-term. This might give you some idea of what to expect, what the experience would be like. And if you're running a language school, or if you're a parent or someone looking for some English teaching, it might give you a little bit more clarity onto what is going on our side of the English teaching scenario in Taipei. All right, thank you very much for checking this out. I'd love to hear others' thoughts, experiences, comments, feedback, all of that. And I will try to